What I've found a lot in my teaching over the years is that when people are good ear players and you put something in front of them, suddenly they stop listening, even though, you know, so the focus becomes here. You lose sight of, again, of the music, of the bigger picture. I mean, listening is at the fundamental core. If something doesn't sound good to you, it's not going to sound good to anyone else. So one of the things, again, how are we listening? With what intention are we listening? Are we listening in a way to say, oh, there's some space over there, I can fill it? Or are we listening with, how do we really make this just be fantastic? Because my music is quite complicated, for the reasons that I'm trying to keep everybody in the music and focus, I will make them realize, okay, if you have this, who is your partner in crime? Who are you supposed to play with? So that there's an awareness of, of whom I'm playing with at this point. Where is my ally? If I'm not sure of the rhythm, where can I lock onto? Again, that visual thing, it might just be an eyeball that goes. I rely on the musicians to figure that out themselves. Again, I don't want to, my role is not to be autonomous rule. My role is, I literally think of it like a lasso. And how do I capture all of these people? I think each person running a band needs to get to know their band and work what's best for their band. I feel it's important to talk to your musicians. Like I've been working with musicians where they prefer a different setup, and then I kind of go, okay, well, let's work with that. Let's see what's best. Because ultimately, if the music is king, all of these things are, we're surfing the music. Then the music, what makes the best music? That's where I feel feedback from your musicians is really good.
We thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You heard Max Nattrass on the alto saxophone there. And Nqgawana on the trumpet.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is where my work is always about get back to the music. If you understand your role in the whole picture, and you understand what is it that you're trying to create here, And that maturity, I feel, can be, I mean, I put it in from when I work with really young people and I work with really old people. I see the same things. And that's where, in a way, I'm guiding that a little. I'm intervening. Not to say, oh, you're overplaying, but what does the music need right now? And are you serving the music or are you serving your ego? And this gets into, again, the whole idea I have of a big band is just a small band, bigger.
Yes.
And if we have those ears, so if you think about it, a lot of people who perhaps play in a big band at an amateur or tertiary level, they're not used to playing in small band. So they kind of, if one takes it from the psychological perspective, this is their time to shine. This is their only moment. So they want to get in every bit of what they can say. Whether it's appropriate or not is the question. And how I feel my job as a leader is, how do I navigate my way through this without putting that person down? The fact that they want to overplay means that they have this energy. So how do I use that energy in another way? That's how I think all the time. But as I say, I work mainly with my music. So I can pull and push it to suit, okay, this person needs, I can hear that your overplaying means you need a little bit of space. How can I make space for you to get all this excess energy out? Because if one takes it from the point of view that everybody wants to be seen and heard and feel relevant, if you're overplaying, normally it means you're not listening. Right. And that tool, I mean, that's the biggest tool, I think, that becomes a problem when you're not at a professional level. You're just playing, you're not listening. So that thing I try and get to from the very start of whether they're 10 years old or whether they're 50 years old. It's the same animal that exists, how to make somebody understand, hey, you're just part of something here. It's not solo this, solo that. And that, I think, unfortunately, I see the tendency more for this competitive thing that exists because of the traditions that have existed.
We would like to move on at this stage to a composition by a dear friend of mine, also a past lecturer, Mr. Darryl Andrews. This is Blue Natural.
The secret of people come and see a big band concert, they say, oh, wonderful. They don't know
that the secret is in the rehearsal technique. You know what I'm saying? Because you never come in front of a big band and say, let's start from the top. You know, I would go to where the tempo changes or where the key changes first and rehearse those sections, you know, before we get to play them and I'm not happy with it. You understand? So I give them a chance to go through all those sections before we play from the top, you know?
In terms of sound production, is the tiered system more effective?
Yes, because as you know, the trumpets normally stand at the back and they are loud. You know, especially with the high stuff, they are loud. So the first trumpet, all the trumpets will always cut. You know, in a high tutti section. You know, and it works out. You know, it works out because you hear the trombones as well. If the 8 brass are playing, and you still hear the saxophones in front, because they are slightly softer, you know. You try to get the drummer next to the horns, you know, somewhere in line, in between the trumpets and trombones maybe. His kit is there, right? And you need the bass player right near to the soloists, which is normally second trumpet, second trombone, you know, first tenor. So you need the bass player there so they can hear, you know, and the piano normally on the end.
Space, how do you deal with volume or balance between the sections and including rhythm sections?
Yeah, you tell them, because remember you're standing in front, so you hear the quality of sound, the overall sound, and you can say, you know, trombones, you just got to lay back a bit there, you know. I know it's marked the fortissimo, but just play it forte, for example, you know. Because maybe there's a saxophone unison line against that, or in octaves, that needs to come out. That's why you'll see usually when I write a long note in the brass, I put a crescendo there, because when they play the note, when it gets softer, that saxophone line will come out.
Thank you so much. That was Neo Matabula on the trumpet there. Dylan Manley on the tenor saxophone. Aviwe Makutwana on the trombone.
The actual saying in America was, no one swings like the bassy band.
Yeah.
You know why? Because they play together in the same order so much that they know exactly what's coming and what they're going to do next. You know? And that's why they sounded so good. I mean,
Do you think that same principle can be applied to South African? If you're doing a big band concert with just South African arrangements,
Yeah,
the same
it
thing
applies
works?
to any music, you know? Any music. I mean, I've done, myself and my Campbell, we've done South African compositions, you know, for big band. Like on my album, I've got that Ngwadlomani tune, you know? And Hanapurt is like a sort of a Cape Jazz style tune. So we've done that type of music as well, but the rehearsal is the same for any tune. Doesn't matter what style the music is, you know? The rehearsal technique, as you called it, is important. For if you're conducting the band, you've got to just take the important sections that are difficult with the band first. Even if it has to be at a slower tempo, you know, until they get it, they've got it down, and then you can bring it up to speed, you know. Things like that you've got to do. And the sound. I remember this. We were playing with a big band one day, a tune called Salsa Caliente. Do you remember that tune? There's an 8-bar section of high trumpet. High trumpet. But it's written in close position. So when they played it, it sounded horribly screechy, you know? So I walked back to the band. I still remember Neil Engel was still playing in that section as well. And it was Chad Hendricks. Yeah. So I walked back to the trumpets and I said, listen, trumpet 2, 3, and 4, what I want you to do for those 8 bars is to lip your notes down. Okay? And I counted them in and they played it and it sounded brilliant. So Chad says to me, Mr. A, how do you know all this stuff? I said, well, this is what I do, man. You know, I know what sound I want to hear. So because they were so close, by flattening their notes, it actually gelled better. It didn't sound so harsh, you know, so the little things like that you'll learn as you go along, you know, how to get the band to sound good.
Yes.
You know? And one thing I never do, I'll never insult or shout at anybody in the band. Never mind how badly they did something. I would always say, yeah, you can do it. I know you can, you know? And if it was you sitting there, you feel confident. Wow, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of being shouted at in front of all your friends. You know, that's not good.
Thank you. This next number is a song by Nqgawana, and it's arranged by Marcus Wyatt. We are going to feature Mr. Gilson Amaral on the alto saxophone.
The way that I write music for big band, I like to have the rhythm section, and then, you know, the horns fit quite close. So I'm more like a traditional vibe, and then having the, you know, like the bass trombone and the bari on the inside of the horns, so that, because they're often doubling bass lines and all of that. So for me, what's important is that the people who play together in the arrangements are close to each other.
Right.
And so I think sometimes if you have a setup where all the horns are spread out in one long line, then you have to rely more on monitoring. Like the trumpet player on the end is not going to hear the sax player on that end. the rhythm section should always be able to have good sight lines with each other, especially the bass player and the drummer and the piano player and the guitarist. I mean, they should be able to freely communicate with each other, and if necessary, have sight lines to the rest of the band. The drummer, that's quite important, that he can see everyone. But yeah, I mean, communication is key. It's the important things. Yeah, I want to be involved in musical decisions, particularly if it's my thing, for sure. But obviously, you have to be clear on introductions or rubato sections, and then maybe if you know there's a difficult cue, you know, then you can maybe you start conducting 4 bars before that, cue the people in. You know, it's more. I guess it's a more. It's hands-on, but it's also understanding at what point is the band actually going to look at you, you know?
Gilson, Amaral, and Joshua Weekly on the piano.
I guess I'm very conscious of, when it comes to preparing for a gig, I'm not from the school of who wants to take a solo here,
Yeah.
I'm very much from like, I know already who I want to hear on what, so if that's the case, then it becomes, I'm not just booking for saxophone players. I'm looking to book this guy, and this guy, because they all have a role to play at some point on an improvisation level or whatever it might be as a good section leader, or so yeah, I don't have a hierarchical kind of approach at all. No, but it's those, to me, it's a more like you've got a band full of individuals, so luckily it can be a bit chaotic, I guess, but it's not like an orchestra or where you've got to really try and make it a bit easier, because you can't have 65 people all going.
This next song is also composed and arranged by Dr. Mike Campbell. It's called Sermon, and we're going to feature Lizo Nqgawana on the guitar. And Mr. Jed Petersen on the tenor saxophone. And Tamsin Freaks, actually.
There's a big difference between the experience that a band has in a rehearsal and a performance. In the most fortunate of times, the difference is not so much. Because a band gets used to a particular acoustic in a room. And when the band is then transplanted in another kind of situation, a different layout, it can have a very marked effect on the way the band plays, especially in younger, less experienced bands. The most important thing in the layout, in rehearsal and on a stage, on a performance stage, is to ensure that there's an internal resonance within the band, and that there's a connection, an oral connection between the rhythm section, particularly the drums, and the rest of the band.
very important connection to be made between the rhythm section and the rest of the band. And that is that horn players, wind instrument players, whether it's saxes or trumpets or whatever in a big band, need to consider themselves as part of the rhythm section. And certain styles in music call for more or less of that connection. Like a sort of straight 8th, 16th driven kind of funk styles. The brass really have to think of themselves as a drum, as a part of the drum set, and hear that subdivision and lock into that subdivision mentally and physically.
That was Tons and Freaks on the trombone. Jed Petersen on the tenor sax. And Lizo Nqgawana on the guitar.
I believe that minimal conducting is necessary in a big band. And I see, or I have seen, many inexperienced younger band directors frantically conducting 4 to their band when it's not necessary. And not only is it unnecessary, but it's counterproductive, because young players, they come to rely on that, and then they don't listen to the rhythm section. If you look at great symphony conductors, you'll see that a lot of the time they're not actually conducting 4 patterns and 6 patterns or whatever, but they're using a combination of gestures that will sort of, in a theatrical way, bring out the feeling that you need, that you're looking for. And it's especially true in big band conducting, where there's a rhythm section. I mean, look, obviously, It depends a lot on the nature of the music. If the music is complex with a lot of tempo changes and pauses and pickups, then the sort of conventional, sort of classical, if you like, conducting techniques then become effective. You know, how to bring in an upbeat and you know, to enter on a sort of a weak beat and that sort of thing.